Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to another episode of The Lab. It is episode number 11. So, getting up in those double digits. If you've been here from the beginning, thank you. If you just joined us, also thank you. And if you no longer join us, well, then I guess that just doesn't matter. um, Kel, what's up? How's it going?
Hey, welcome. Well, we've made it to June, so that's exciting. Pride month, and it's my
Mhm.
birthday month. So yeah, it's going pretty good. I just got back from vacation, so I'm like raring to go.
Nice.
Yeah, it's mostly I'm just trying to get back into my routine. I was gone for 5 days, and I was so excited to get back to the gym. So that was really nice. I don't know if you ever get that, but like even if you just take a break for a while, like you just get like you miss like your routine, and
Oh
it's
yeah.
so pitiful. And it's like I miss just chicken and rice.
I totally understand that. Like it's no matter how sick of it you are and you go like leave for a few days, you're just ready to get back to it. And it's the strangest thing, but yeah, I get that.
Yeah, so that's kind of where I've been. I'm back. What 2 days back? So I just finished a workout. I'm feeling good. You switched up my workouts, so I'm like even more excited because I'm like, ooh, new fun things. Okay, and yeah. So that's kind of where I'm at. How about you? How you doing?
Pretty good. I got a little under 2 weeks, so I get to see my new doctor for a second opinion for my knee.
Yeah.
Um, so that cannot come fast enough because I just like need to get some treatment. Uh, I don't want to end up in surgery, but I almost feel like at this point I would even be happy with that because like I've just been scooting along with no game plan. So um then again, I don't want surgery. I just thought about that. But I just need something like even if I go the same route of PRP injections, I will hope that at least this doctor will file an appeal when he says he's going to file an appeal.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes. Um, I've done 8 sessions now of physical therapy, and my shoulder is like legit starting to feel better. I was like
That's
not wanting to
awesome.
jinx it, and but
Just
this
knock on all
week,
the wood.
yeah, right. This week has been doing the best so far, so I'm just hoping that like it progressively keeps getting better, and I'm in like a little bit of a kind of like health or recovery phase right now. So it's not like the worst time to be rehabbing things,
Yeah.
especially like the upper body, because at least I'm doing men's physique next time. So, well, I had to pivot to that due to
Right.
my dumbass doctor just being like, yeah, you don't matter. So, yeah, but so yeah, I'm feeling pretty good because I feel like I have like hope.
Yeah. Forward momentum is always good.
Yes, I love it.
Yeah. Take the small things. I feel like that. I don't know. It's like the wins you'll take. Like,
Oh yeah, yeah,
I don't know. It kind of is a good reminder to just like set small goals, I guess.
yeah, and
Smaller
it's
goals, smaller chunks.
yeah, I think it's also like a reminder too, just in the future of when injuries happen, because they do, they just do sometimes, even if like your form's good or whatever, but you know, aging, like
Bad
literally you
luck.
can hurt yourself tying your shoes and stuff. Yeah, so I think it's just a reminder of like, um, sometimes the world forces you to slow down, but it's not a dead end and it's not the end, and it sucks. But there there is light at the end of the tunnel. Like time does pass. And as they say, like this too shall pass. It's like, man, so true, so cliche, but so true.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Cliche for a reason.
That is facts, yes. But
Yeah.
I think I forgot to say the topic. So for anyone wondering, if you're like, all right, guys, you can shut up. I don't even know what I'm listening to. The topic for today is motivation versus discipline. Basically, like, everyone always asks a very similar question about how I stay motivated because, that's a lot of the things when I get inquiries about training. A lot of the times they'll say the thing that holds them back the most is lack of motivation, where like they'll start off strong, but then the motivation stops and then they just stop. So I figured that would probably be like a really good thing to discuss.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that all of our kind of our little bit of talking is kind of a good segue to the topic for motivation versus discipline. I did look up the definition so we can start off with what the dictionary says, and then we'll kind of jump off from there. So motivation is, according to Webster, Merriam-Webster, I think, is the reason or reasons one has for acting or behaving in a particular way, which I feel like everybody kind of knows that. And then discipline, it took me a couple of dictionaries to find a definition that I kind of liked. And it's not just because I was picking and choosing, but I kind of wanted one that would fit more into our training mindset and that kind of thing. So the one that I kind of landed on it was from the Encyclopedia Britannica, and it was control. Discipline is the control that is gained by requiring that rules or orders must be obeyed. And I think that one, I like that one the best because a lot of the other ones I saw had penalties or punishments as part of discipline. And I understand where that's coming from, because whenever you think of discipline, you're kind of thinking, at least from a non-fitness related thought process, would be like kind of like disciplining like children, or parents disciplining children, which often does come with punishments.
I think of spanking specifically.
Yes. Yes. I mean, if you're into that kind of training, I mean, no shame. It's Pride Month. We're accepting all now. But yeah, so I kind of like that. And I guess I could have gone into like self-discipline, but I kind of wanted to make it more broad. So control that is gained by requiring that rules must be obeyed. So what do you think? Do you like those definitions? What do you kind of glean from that?
Yeah, I think I probably was too ADD to listen to the whole motivation definition. So I'm gonna go with yes.
So the motivation one, and I think this kind of leads to it. So the motivation is the reason why you're acting in a way, and the discipline is the control that is gained by requiring that rules are obeyed. So those are two completely different things, right?
Yeah.
So motivation is the why, right? Your why in training. Discipline is how you train, essentially, if you want to kind of boil it down. And I think that is where people get confused.
Yeah.
It's just the basic definitions.
Right. Yeah. And I think like when it comes to, I feel like discipline in a sense, I think of it as more of a habit too. Because it's just something that you tend to do out of habit. Yeah. It just is like eventually becomes natural, or it's just like this instilled way of telling yourself like, hey, like, we got to do this. That little voice in the back of your head that's like, I know you don't want to, but that doesn't matter. And motivation to me, I feel like, is more of a feeling.
Right.
Yeah.
So the way I kind of was thinking about it was motivation is the why and discipline is the how. So I came up with this like metaphor, or a simile, I suppose, and to like a fire, right? Like a bonfire. Like we're entering Midwest summer, so bonfires are our nightly activity, or not nightly, but like social activity. But so motivation would be like maybe the spark, or like the lighter fluid that you use to like start that fire. So like you'll get that big boom, and that burns really quick, and it works only if you can get embers to catch, right? And you don't have to be a Boy Scout to kind of know this, but like discipline would be those embers that keep the fire going. So they're small, they're kind of minuscule. They're at the baseline, the bottom of the fire, right next to the ground. And then by sticking to plan, so like to quote our favorite James Clear, is those votes every day would be that sticking to the plan idea and showing up for yourself every day, reinforcing that, those embers, reinforcing that would be kind of like the adding of the wood, like adding more and more wood as that fire grows. And so that's kind of the way I was thinking about it. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that is a good analogy. Um, so I guess the biggest question is, how do you light a fire in the rain?
That is a good question, but I've watched enough of their survival shows to know it is possible.
Yes, you can light fires in the rain and you can get motivated even when you don't feel like it. But I guess you could start a fire in the rain with discipline. That would be
Yeah,
um
just keep trying. Like,
yeah.
I don't know. So I think motivation, everybody has motivation at the very beginning of something. Like when you get super excited about something, about changing. That's why everybody starts out huge and all the gyms get crowded in January, right?
Mhm.
But why do only like a quarter of those people make it to June even, right? 6 months in,
Yeah.
and that gym is cleared out.
I think it's a mix of like unrealistic expectations, and then just not not realizing that when motivation dips, that doesn't mean you stopped. Like
Right.
they think that something is wrong with them because they're specifically not motivated, but they don't realize that everyone experiences that. Even people who work out every day or whatever, just have been doing it for years, there's always dips in motivation. It's just one of those things you learn to kind of, ride the motivation roller coaster. Like when it's there, take advantage of it, enjoy it. When it's not there, kick in some gears to make sure that you stay on track anyways, and just realize it will come back around. It
Right.
just temporarily dips out and it also temporarily dips in. So it's unfortunate. Like it's not fun to push yourself when motivation dips. Everything feels harder. The weights feel heavier. Things just, in general, yeah, it's hard. It's uncomfortable. It's not easy. But that's just unfortunately what you got to do. Like there isn't any other way around it. You can't just like stop until the motivation comes back because you're just never going to get anywhere.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Like I just, it's all about the systems that you have in place, right? To make yourself keep going. No one wants to go to work every day. Like not everybody likes their job every day. And even if you have enough money to say clear your bills, you're probably still going to show up for your job. And I don't know if it's necessarily motivation or just discipline. I would say at that point it's discipline, right? So like I think it's just making it a priority and making it a system. Like that's just what I do at
Yeah,
on Wednesdays. It's not a rest day. I go to the gym. It's just what I do after work. So and it's not it's there's nothing fancy to it. There isn't any like trick. You just have to make it part of what you do. At least
totally.
that's, I don't know, that's kind of what I think. That's what self-discipline is to me. If that's what you want to think about. Like not
Yeah,
every workout's gonna feel like you crushed it. It's just simply
yeah,
not. So
yeah,
some days
for sure.
workouts just suck.
It's true. I think like, when you mentioned just because people don't want to go to work, that doesn't mean they don't go to work. But I think the aspect of is that is because like people think of work or, it is providing shelter for them. It is providing like it's like you have to do it if you want to keep like a roof over your head
Yeah.
and eat food in your refrigerator. There's more of this sense of urgency or priority to make it happen. And unfortunately, people don't think of health that way. But it's like you cannot even do that job if you are not healthy. So really, the priorities should be around the same level, if not
Right.
like more on the health side. So for whatever reason, our brains just have a hard time grasping it because we can get away with not exercising for a certain amount of time. But once you hit like a certain age or a certain amount of time of just not being active, not eating properly, it will catch up to you. But I think a lot of people have this mindset of like that's just someone else, like it's not going to affect them personally, they're fine, they're healthy, whatever, like everything's in line right now, they can ignore it. But like that is not forever. There are still consequences in the future. It's kind of like people when they start smoking, right? You don't see those consequences right away. It takes a long time. And in the same way that you don't see results right away when you start working out, like everything takes time, whether that's a good benefit or a not so good benefit, like a bad thing. They all take time. Nothing's immediate, but you kind of have to like start thinking like it's like it is. Like eventually being not active will catch up to you. And if you want to keep doing your job, you have to be healthy.
Yeah. And I think it's just like I think it is. I think that's just that lack of honesty and like understanding of honesty with yourself. Like if you set a goal that you want to be healthy, or you set a goal that you want to do something, it doesn't really matter either way. You just have to be honest with yourself and be like, is that one a goal that's obtainable or whatnot? So even if it's not about a goal, if it's just about being healthy, everybody can let me step that back a little bit. Everybody has the ability to help improve their health by enjoying a healthy lifestyle and working towards a healthy lifestyle. And it's not always fun, and it isn't always something that's going to be great, but you have to be honest with yourself and realize that you're not special. Like for the most part, everybody is average, and average is average because that's just what like the general population is. That's how numbers work. Like there's a chance that there's more than likely that you are like everybody else, and that age will catch up with you, health will catch up with you, and all that all together, some of that is in your control.
Yeah. That reminds me of like a really good thing. I had a client say, I had him on my podcast where he said like he basically warned people not to wait until they're scared, because that's basically what ended up motivating him, because he had a health scare. And I just thought that was like a really good way of saying it, being like, do not wait until you're scared to start this. It will come, like it will. It just is a matter of time. Like you said, you're not special.
Yeah. I think, I don't know if it's just like the Americans or general how the future is going, how people are thinking about themselves. Everybody's so individualized now, which is great, and I think it's completely great to kind of embrace your individuality and all that jazz. But like when we're coming to health and like things that have been well studied, you're probably not special. You're probably pretty average. Like most people aren't going to skate by forever by eating McDonald's every day. Like you can do that when you're 14 and don't know any better. But like when you do know better, and when you start creeping up in age, or even if those votes on the unhealthy side start adding up a little quicker, and it's gonna fail at some point. The scales are gonna tip.
And that's also not being said that like living a healthy lifestyle won't completely prevent a health scare. There's people that live
for sure
like very healthy lifestyles that end up with, things like cancer and stuff like that. But for example, I have an uncle who recently had like a heart attack / blood clot thing. Basically, it was a miracle he was alive, but he was an avid bike rider and stuff like that, and his dad had died of heart disease, so he was very health conscious. And there's a lot of people are just like, there's this consensus of like, oh damn, like he was so health conscious and rode his bike, and then he still had heart attack. It's like he probably would not have survived if he wasn't so health conscious. So you have to think of all of these things that could still happen, but you're stronger, so the chances of you fighting it and not dying are probably higher if you're going into it healthy. So it's not to say that like prevention is always 100%. It's really not, but
definitely not.
It's like just making sure you're strong enough to even fight if something does happen,
right? And also like to make things like less likely. Like so I am on a cholesterol medicine, so like I am pretty darn healthy. I'm very health conscious. I track, or I watch what I eat. I exercise routinely, and I still have shitty cholesterol. and I was kind of talking to my doctors, and I'm like, well, how could I have prevented this? Like, what what was it? And I like listed all these things. I had all these questions, and they're like, sometimes it just happens. Like it's genetics. You kind of
Yeah.
drew the short stick. Like it just freaking happens, and it sucks. And I like pouted about it for a couple days, and I was pissed off because I'm like, I so much sacrifice, blah 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 blah. But I think the more you think about it like that, it's a little bit more self-defeating. Like because I was like kind of like got on that train, like, well, that freaking sucks. I try so hard, I give up so much, I've so sacrificed so much, just and I still have to be on a medication forever. That sucks. And it does suck, but like I tried to reframe it and to like it's not necessarily sacrifice because it's like I still have my body to be able to do this and reach all of these goals. And it's just like, well, your body's still pretty cool and it's still pretty awesome. And you can still do this all in spite of certain things. And I think that is kind of an important thing to also think about.
Yeah. And it's just kind of one of those things like sometimes genetics just, give you certain cards to play and then you have to figure out what to do with that. And it's kind of like if you have, I mean, in your example, having cholesterol issues, some people might be like, oh, this whole healthy thing doesn't work. Fuck it. I'm doing whatever I want. But like that would just make it exponentially worse. So
Right.
you're still like benefiting from, being healthy, eating right.
Absolutely.
Stuff.
And I'm on the
So,
lowest dose. So like
yeah,
it's fine.
it's just something that people tend to not really like grasp. It's like just because you have this certain condition doesn't mean that this is not working. It's just like you could be so much worse off.
Yes. Right. And I think people don't want to look at that other side. Everybody
Yeah.
is looking for the excuse to take the easiest route.
Right. And people always look at the outliers too. They're like, well, this guy smoked when he was 12 and he lived till he was 105 and he's fine. So, like, how many people do you know like that though?
Well, that's my whole thing when I hear people talk about like modern medicine and how like they don't want to listen to doctors and or scientists and blah 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 blah. Like people back in the day didn't do it, and I'm like, yeah, and then they lived till 40 and died. Like,
right?
that isn't very good. That's not a very good example.
Yeah, like that's like the biggest issue I have with like. I mean, when you think of like the paleo diet, right? Their concept was basically like it does make sense to an extent where they're like our bodies have not evolved at the same pace as our food system has. So like our body is like, whoa, what the hell is this shit? Like, but if they're saying like, oh, they didn't have diabetes and cancer and all of these things back in the caveman days, it's like they did not live very long, first of all. Second of all, how do you know? Because we didn't have diagnostic tools. Like maybe a lot of them died of cancer at 30 years old or something. So that's just a very strange argument to me to be like, let's go back in time to where they didn't live very long. Doesn't make much sense.
Exactly. I feel like we're getting a little down off topic. So how do we get back?
We always do. Sorry, guys.
Hey, it can link back eventually. So we have the motivation. How do we use that motivation to jumpstart ourselves into some kind of self-discipline? What do you think?
That's a hard one because
answer the whole reason of the podcast probably right now.
What was that?
I was like, I feel like that question is the whole point of the podcast. So answer it right now.
Ready, go. It's hard because like I don't know, like personally for me, I don't know. It's almost like I can describe how I deal with my dips and motivation and stuff like that, but I know that everyone's different. So like it's basically plan for your motivation to die. Just do it. Like just know that at some point it is not going to be there. So you have to like, set up the systems like we kind of talked about. You have to plan and set up your systems to make it like really hard for you to actually stop or fail or whatever. So if you anticipate the beginning motivation to drop off, hopefully you can kind of catch yourself and just expect that it's part of the process. know that it is part of the process. There's nothing wrong with you. It's not that you don't want it. It's not that you don't want to do it. Like, even when I want something so fucking bad, like it still gets extremely hard and my motivation still dips because I got self-doubt, I procrastinate, like everything happens. But it doesn't mean that I don't want it. I eventually get there. It's just like working through and making sure that you're doing things even if you don't feel like it. And I know that concept is really hard to grasp for basically everybody, but it's like being, like I talk a lot about how self-care, right? We have this kind of fluffy little like unicorn bath time thing with self-care, but self-care truly is being an adult or like parenting yourself, like making sure you're fed, showered, going to sleep, getting some exercise, eating properly. So I would say it's going to get uncomfortable, but like discomfort is not toxic. There's a lot of times when the motivation dips, people are like, this sucks. I'm depressed. I hate this. And they're like, this is bad for my mental health. And then they stop. So it's just like, no. Plan for the motivation to disappear. Try to make it like a fail-safe plan and anticipate it because it will. That's my,
Right.
I don't know if that made any sense.
No, it makes sense. So when I've worked in different versions of factories for my entire career, and the thing, and I've always been in quality. So like essentially my job is to police and make sure everybody's following the rules. So I am the discipline stick for our whatever job awful. I've ever. Yes, it does. And but I've learned a lot through it. So the thing that I've always told people, especially managers who I needed to help improve some kind of system, is making the right choice the easiest choice. So everybody, no matter what, is looking for a shortcut in anything that they're doing, ever. Always. And so when you make the right choice, the easiest one, then people will do the right thing. And so that is like the key to setting up a system, right? Yeah. And that is the trick. So you just have to figure out what would make it the easiest thing for you. And that's the individual part. So my thing is I'm very much a creature of habit. Very much. I do the same thing every day in the same order, no matter what. I could do my entire day with my eyes closed just off muscle memory, I think. And so that is my thing. So when I get off work, I go straight to the gym. I make no stops, and that's my promise to myself before I go to my final destination. And I do that, like, so even if I like needed to pick up groceries or something, I do that at my lunch break, or I do that before work, because there's no stops between my job and either the gym or home. That's it. If it's a rest day, I go home. If it's a gym day, I go to the gym. No stops in between. And so that's my thing. And that's kind of the trick I've taught myself, is like, that's my one promise to myself. That's what I do. Like, I don't care if I'm running out of gas, I'm making it to the gym immediately after work, because I know if I go home first, I am not leaving my house. So that's kind of the thing I did. So that's how I make sure I go to the gym, is I plan my day ahead of time, and that's the plan I stick to. And it's kind of that, going back to that idea of self-care, and to me, it's even more like kind of the opposite. Like, it would be toxic for me to not go to the gym, because then I will be pissed at myself because I didn't follow my one rule. My one rule is to take care of myself and follow my day plan. So if I didn't do that, then I'm going to be pissed at myself, and I'm going to get depressed off that, because I have very negative self-talk if I don't stick to my plan. So it's probably not the healthiest way to think about it. And I'm like, sure talk. And I'm sure that your therapist person would have a heyday with that, Alice, right? And yes. But that's kind of like my thing. So like, I know it would be toxic if I didn't go to the gym because I would be upset. And I broke the promise to myself. And that's kind of shitty. Like I grew up in a family where promises got broken all the time. And so that was my way of caring for myself because I'm not going to break a promise to myself. Period. Like you got to show up for someone and
Mhm.
like you're the only person you have. So and
Yeah.
that's kind of a dark way to look at the world, but if you're not going to show up for yourself, who the hell are you going to show up for?
Yeah.
Um, so that's kind of how I think about it. So make the easiest decision, the right decision. Um, all of my meals I pack and put in Tupperwares before I go to bed. So when I go to work the next day, all I have to do is move them from my fridge to my cooler and go to work. It would be harder for me to go out. It would be harder for me to pack something that wasn't on my plan. Um, so yeah, it's kind of just figuring out how you can shortcut yourself and making the
Yeah.
shortcut the right decision. At least
Yeah.
that's
Like
how
don't make
I've that's
shortcuts the
how
bad way.
yeah. Because like it's easier for me to stay to my plan than it is to deviate because I've set it up so it's all muscle memory. And
Yeah.
that's kind of how I've handled it. And I started that when I had motivation and now it's just habitual. It's reflexive. So
Yeah. It's like you create such a routine and habit that it feels wrong if you deviate. That's like basically the
right.
secret. Um,
Exactly.
but yeah, I think there's also when you create a routine that you do like day in and day out, uh, it also, I think a big thing that people get caught up on is decision fatigue, which is why weekends are always so hard for people, because there is no schedule that's like created for them. If you don't work on weekends, of course, I know some people do. I do, but like it's there's no schedule that's just like laid out. It's not like, oh, I got to get up at this time to get to work, blah, blah. So when you just have like an open day and your routine of like the week is not there, that is when all of the bad decisions are made.
Yeah.
It's like I'm gonna DoorDash something, or it just like all unravels, and then you just the whole weekend goes to shit. But like, um, that's also a reason why it is actually helpful to eat similar foods, at least like certain times. I mean, you don't have to eat like the same thing every day, but if you at least have like half the week is the same meals, Monday through Wednesday, and then you switch it up Wednesday through Sunday or whatever,
Yeah.
it's because it reduces the amount of decisions that you have to make throughout the week. And it's like when you don't, like, it's like when you already have so much going on in your life, if you're having to think constantly of like, what am I going to eat to hit my macros or whatever, like that is literally when you just like go into fuck it mode because your brain's like, ouch, like I cannot even think about this right now. Just like give me some Taco Bell and call it a day. So if you can create a routine, even if that's with your food, even if that's with your clothing, like if you don't have to decide what you're gonna wear every day, like plan it out, or maybe wear the same shit. I don't know. That's what I do because I just like I really am a creature of habit. I have like a rotation of maybe like 5 shirts. And what happens is I just buy the same shirts. When they start to fade, I make them into cutoffs and then they just keep rotating.
I just grab like the first two things that match ish on top of my drawers. Like so like I end up going through the same 5 things because it's just always on top. Like
Yeah,
I don't care.
exactly.
It doesn't matter. I think it's always just a like I and to me, everybody is a creature of habit. I don't care if they say, unless they're a chaos monster, like my dogs, they're a creature of habit.
Like your dog.
Like my dogs are crazy, but I think like most people have a routine. They might not want to call it that, and it might not be with everything, but they are routine in something, right? And
Yeah.
and so I think it's all about building on that. And I'm sure everybody's getting sick because of hearing us talk about this kind of stuff because we say the same things over and over, but it truly is the answer to all of your training, fitness, nutrition needs is
Really is.
build a system, stick to the system, period. Make
Yep.
it easy for yourself.
Yeah.
And
I
making it easy makes you stick to it.
exactly.
Period.
And I think people I feel like people romanticize spontaneity a lot. So it's like this huge resistance to like doing the same thing over and over. But it's also like you got to realize you can take vacations, like you can take breaks. And like we were just discussing how like you
Yeah.
came back from vacation and you felt ready to get back into things, because you do get to a point where you're like, oh my God, I'm doing the same shit. It's like Groundhog's Day. But then once you get away from it, you realize like how much you miss it. And
Yeah.
then you just are ready to get back into it. And so it takes just a little bit to like recharge and then like be ready to like hit the routine that you've been doing again. But like spontaneity is great sometimes, but it's not realistic to have spontaneity every day unless you just, you know, like you said, you are this person who thrives off chaos, but that sounds very stressful. So I would
The
recommend
anxious
like
person's worst nightmare.
it really is. It's like I don't know how people do that.
Right. And like, so I have a couple points. First off, like vacations are very much a fuck it time. Like I just want to not think about, I just want to go with the flow, do whatever. And that's okay. Like I did it
Yeah.
for 5 days.
Mhm.
I felt like shit. My poops were very weird. Like it's just, it doesn't feel good on my body.
Yeah.
And I feel like I got in such a routine. I felt so great. I knew exactly how I was going to feel. All the variables were removed from my life. It felt like I knew what I was going to feel. I felt good. Workouts went well, blah, blah, blah. Everything feels like it falls into place. And then I go out, it feels really good. It like recharges that motivation, recharges that kind of desire, that it like kind of like pour some more lighter fluid on the fire, gets me ready to come back, and I'm in it, hitting everything like I want to, feeling great, sticking to the plan. And it is really nice to have that break. I won't lie. It feels great. It really helps recharge those batteries, but it does feel so good to get back into it and to know what to expect and to know how my body is going to feel in the day. And like I I'm sure with how anxious you are and how anxious I am, like, isn't it great to know exactly what to expect from your day?
Yes, I hate when something randomly happens to me that I'm
Yeah,
like, that wasn't in the plan.
that wasn't in the plan, and you work around it and all that jazz, and shit happens. Life isn't completely controlled, but like it feels like you have control when your day, you know what to expect from your day.
Yeah.
Um, and it really does help soothe that anxious mind a little bit.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of though, it's like I know there's people who don't struggle with anxiety or um stuff like that. So it's probably a lot harder for people who don't have anxiety to like feel good in a routine. I mean, that's just my thought. I don't know if that is true. We should probably talk to a non-anxious person, but can we call a friend or phone a friend
Phone a
like
friend.
hey.
I don't know. I feel like more and more people I meet, and maybe I'm just like surrounding myself with people who are similar to me, but like I feel like everybody's anxious about something. And like I'm sorry, surprises are fun every once in a while, but when every day is a surprise, like how do you
No,
live
they're
in
good.
those situations? Like
I don't know.
I just I don't know. If it sounds very stressful.
It really is. I remember like so even when I was working in the kitchen, my routine was very similar to yours. So I was early morning, I was off at 2, straight to the gym. If anyone like asked me to either pick something up, hang out, whatever, one little stop, I was like so agitated.
Yeah.
I was just like, no, like I'm gonna get to the gym late, then it's gonna be more crowded, and like I'm gonna be more tired. So I don't know where I'm going with this, but I was just gonna say, like, I'm so regimented that even within my job, like usually I knew what to expect. I knew I was gonna have to make a shit ton of soup. I sometimes didn't know what soups I was making, but occasionally someone would throw something in there, like the fridge broke. So we gotta move all the food out the fridge into like across to the other fridge, which was not close. And it just like when little like things get thrown in your day, like it really throws a wrench in everything in my plans because that's just the type of person I am. I
Mhm.
don't know if other people without anxiety have that same like experience, but I think it just goes to show that I mean there is a benefit to routine in the sense of like when you fall off the routine, when you feel like so happy to get back to it, you just like you know that it's a good one, like you know it's
Yeah.
helping you in that sense. That was like the weirdest way to explain that. So I'm
Like,
not high.
I'm not either. Not this time. But like, so like, I don't know. I every once in a while I have to shift my work schedule. So I know I've told you about this a million times. Like, I'll have a random day where I have to go in at like 2 a.m. and it like throws everything. But I just like move my whole day. Like, I just move everything up or everything back depending on which way something moves, or I just try to keep as much of the routine as possible. So I'll kind of like space it out. I just make sure everything stays in order. That's usually how I handle it. Every once in a while, it will be kind of weird, and that's when I really struggle. So like for a while, I was having to have to be at work at like 3 a.m, and I would get off at like noon. Sometimes I was able to go straight into the gym right at noon, but some days I was just like dragging ass, like if I slept bad or something. And so I would go home and nap and then try to go to the gym afterwards. Very hard,
Yeah.
very, very hard to like wake up from a nap and be like, oh, I gotta go work out. But it was doable. It took a lot more, but again, it was going back to that like promise that I made with myself. Like, look, I gotta show up. I'm the number one priority for me sometimes. Like, if you have kids, I don't have kids, so I can't speak to that, and I know that like a lot of your priorities shift when that happens. But I think to show up as a good person to myself and to everybody who I love in my life, I have to take care of me first. And it's that whole thing that I'm sure many people have heard, but like, you can't fill other people's cup from an empty cup. So you have to make sure you're full first. You're taken care of first before you can take care of other people. And it's like that airplane. Since I was just on a plane, you have to put on your air mask first, then everybody else's. It's
Yep.
always the rule, even with parents. So
Yep. Yep. Very true. And I think like there's always, I don't know, I feel like there's this stigma, or I mean, I've said before, if you really do have a job that makes you so busy that you literally have no time to take care of yourself, then it's probably wise you start looking for another job. And I
yeah,
know that sounds probably like pretty fucking privileged, but you're, like I said, previously, your health should be number one because you need that to even work that job. So what do you do like if you end up sick down the road? You can't really work that job anyways. But also, this might sound like an asshole thing to say, but you're still not special. Your employer will replace you in 2 seconds. So, like, to put
absolutely.
that much of yourself into that job and sacrifice your health for this job that would replace you in 2 seconds without a thought, that stings a bit, right? So, make sure you do prioritize yourself.
I feel like that, like, our generation is like the first generation who's like realizing that like
Yeah.
employers do not give a fuck about you. Like,
Yep.
it might be shiny and nice like up front, like to your face, but like if you died, they're gonna replace you, and they're gonna have that job posted within the week that you're dead. Like, it's businesses keep rolling. Corporate America is a cold world. Like,
Yep.
it
Yeah.
just is, and like, it sucks, but like, and I think that's a very much different topic, but I think our generation, like especially right after the pandemic, everybody was kind of
Mhm.
like, oh shit, employers really don't care. and,
Mhm.
like,
Yeah.
and I worked for a restaurant at the time, so they were like, fuck you all, go out there, we don't give a fuck if you're sick. Like, um it is what it is. Like,
Yeah.
it business, especially if you don't own the business, they're not looking out for you. It
No.
doesn't matter.
It's
So
unfortunate. It's hard to think about that because you want to think you're working for someone who cares about you. And maybe to some extent they do, but they don't care enough to where you should sacrifice your health for them.
well, if they
Like,
really cared about you, they wouldn't ask you to sacrifice your health.
that's very true. So, yeah, something to ponder. And I think, obviously with all the jobs that are open and,
No kidding.
restaurants, coffee shops, or whatever that cannot fully staff their shops, I think it really speaks to people realizing that like one, they're not putting up with toxic work environments anymore, which is basically every restaurant or anything to do with food.
Any service industry, I would say.
Yeah, any service industry, people are just like, fuck that. Like, I will DoorDash and I will Instacart, but I will not step foot in your restaurant or whatever to work for you specifically. Yeah, because it is very toxic. Like there are those types of workplaces that should give you breaks, but actually don't. You're just like basically sacrificing everything when you're on the clock there, and people are realizing that that's actually not okay. Like they're like starting to demand more, and I think that that's actually a good thing. I think
It's great. Yeah.
we shouldn't have these like crazy toxic work environments, and I think it's time for the food industry to like fucking step it up and like give their employees insurance and give them paid vacation and like
More than
not yell at
$2 an
them.
hour.
Yeah, like more than minimum wage, not scream and yell, and maybe be a little nicer. But I guess they say if you can't take the heat, then get out of the kitchen. I was like, cool, fuck, peace out.
Bye.
I'm leaving.
Bye. What is that TikTok girl who goes toodaloo?
Yeah. So
So
where do we go from here?
where do we go from here? So again, while you're motivated, because you will have some motivation, especially at the beginning, get those systems set up. I think that is the key on how you real and I think the other thing with that is, because I'm having two thoughts at once, is when you have motivation at the beginning, set yourself up for longevity. So like don't say I'm going to work out 7 days a week so I can only work out, so when my motivation fades, I'm only going to work out 5. That isn't the right way to think about it.
Yeah.
Because so don't overcompensate. Set up the plan and stick to the plan, and set up the system and make sure it is set up and airtight before that motivation fades. I think that would be my biggest piece of advice here.
Yeah. It's like, what is something you could do that you could sustain even through your most craziest times of life? You don't want to think like, I'm just going to do this now, and then if something happens, then I'll adjust. But it's like, if you can make whatever it is you're doing sustainable, even in your like happy, easier times of life, like you want to make it so that it's also sustainable through your rough patches.
Right.
And as far as creating systems, I would say, I think people might be like, well, how do I do that? It's kind of trial and error. Like the system that I have in place, it kind of just like grew over the years into what it is today. It's kind of like it just started with me waking up early, and then like, like just playing around with what worked best for me. And it changes sometimes depending on like when I moved here, I kind of changed when I worked out a little bit to avoid the crowds a bit more, because it's more crowded at this gym. So it's just kind of like you might have to adjust things sometimes, but yeah, don't stress about it. Like if you're like, this is how I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna stick to it. But if that doesn't work, it doesn't mean you can't just rearrange. So yeah.
Right. And so like I think the key there is like that trial and error and iteration. So like sticking to having a system. So like don't throw out the idea of having a system. Like I wouldn't want to bank on, okay, I promised myself that I'm going to work out today, but it's just going to happen sometime in this 24 hours. I wouldn't want to do that. I would want to try to find a specific time. So like, even if it's not a time necessarily, so say you don't know what time you're going to get off work, just make sure you have like maybe a backup, like a backup meal in the car in case like you need to eat beforehand, or if like you run out of food. Like if you say you don't know if you're going to get off work at 3 or at 6 p.m., make sure you have that meal that would fall in that time period ready with you, so you can still hit the gym after work or something along those lines. So just plan, period. Just make sure you have a specific plan and be able to, if it's not working. So say, like for example, like if you say you want to work out in the morning before work, but for the first 2 weeks of the plan after your motivation phase, it was not working, and you just slept through every single alarm and you didn't make it. maybe instead of just beating yourself up consistently, you should think of a different time. So reiterate the plan. So come up with a new iteration. I'm going to work out at noon at my lunch break or something. Like pick a different time, make a new plan, go with it. Like don't just like give up or beat yourself up because plan A isn't working. You need to figure out plan B then.
Yeah.
And it is trial and error, trying to figure out what works best. And kind of just stick with it and be okay that things will change sometimes. Just make sure you stick to the goal, I guess.
Yeah.
Still be disciplined enough to follow through, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Funny thing, I always thought I was like a big weirdo for having such a routine. Because I my mom and stuff was like always annoyed by it because like I don't know. Like I was like a weirdo for it. So I had this complex for the longest time that I felt like I had to hide like how rigid I actually was. I don't know why I'm telling you this, but I'm just saying if anyone feels self-conscious about like having a routine and being rigid, like just know that if anyone gives you shit, that's not on you. Like you're taking care of yourself. And if you have a family or whatever and you live with others, there probably might be some resistance if it's new, and they're not used to you being this more rigid or having systems and stuff like that, because it might kind of impact them. Maybe you don't sit in bed and eat crumble cookie while watching Netflix, like maybe you can't do that as often and they might not be so happy about that. But don't like cave because someone's not 100% supportive or like isn't a fan of your new system or whatever. Like just remember that this is for you and like you want to be healthy for you and you want to be healthy for your family because like they need you around. So I don't know if anyone else has that weird experience, but if you do, I just wanted to say that.
I've had that experience too. And just I think that we also like I would push back a little bit on those people who are like against your routine because I feel like almost everybody has something that they just aren't qualifying as a routine. Like I have a friend who watches Jeopardy every night with dinner. And it's just like that's a routine, even if that's not what you want to call it. Like it is, you do it 5 out of 7 days a week. Like what else would you call it? I mean, maybe you're not as upset if you're not following through with it, but I'd still say it's a routine.
Yeah. That's kind of like a good point to say, maybe some of y'all already have a routine that you're not even aware of. So like if you think through your week or like things that you do regularly, maybe like write those down. If you're anti-routine, you might actually already have one.
Yeah. I think people are overall creatures of habit in general. Like I would bet I would put money on that most people have a loose routine.
Yeah.
That they follow from at least 5 days a week.
Yeah, because like I mean, especially if you work, say you like work a 9 to 5, like even that is a routine because you're doing
that's a routine. You're showing up.
It's like maybe you don't like it, but it's still a routine.
You're still doing it.
Yep. Yeah. Is there anything else we should cover on this topic? I feel like the biggest thing I always want to just put the point across is like discomfort is gonna be your friend. I know it doesn't feel like it, and it hurts sometimes, but it's part of the growing process, and you have to keep pushing through it.
Yep, absolutely. And like we can keep, and just remember that you're not special. That if you're having a feeling and you either are embarrassed about it or think you're the only one, I guarantee you're not. And if you start asking around, you'll find more people who are like you.
Yeah. Also, that reminds me of, have you watched that Netflix series? Shit. It's that like Anna Delvey story or whatever.
Oh, yes, I have.
Okay. So that's one of the phrases that that reporter chick says. She's like, I'm not special. And she's like giving birth and she's like, I'm not special.
Yes.
So like,
it's true. I feel like that's what I want my shirt to say is I'm not special.
Yeah. At first it kind of stings, but then you realize like what it actually means. It just means that
Right.
like you're not escaping like responsibilities in life. Like you're not special to where you like won't end up with heart disease if you eat like shit and don't exercise, like yeah.
Yep.
So
That's how science works. Law of
yep.
averages. All right. So are we ready for my power talk for today?
Ready. Let's go.
All right. So today I have a quote from Jocko Willink. He's a retired Navy SEAL. I think he does like a radio show on like ESPN or something. But this is the quote. So motivation is fickle. It comes and goes. It's unreliable. And when you're counting on motivation to get you to your goals accomplished, you're likely to fall short. And so that's kind of just what I wanted to say, just because I think it's really common for people, especially to look at coaches, to look at people who are succeeding in like fitness and in those kind of goals, that they're super motivated people. Like everybody thinks that like Tony Robbins or like David Goggins is like just super motivated, and that's just not the case. Like everybody has those days where they're not motivated and they just do it anyways. And I think that is a hard truth that people are reluctant to accept, because that's what they are banking on, right? Well, that person's motivated. I'm not motivated. Those are the differences. It's not the fact that they're just following through. And I think that's something that people need to understand and really ruminate on, just because motivation for everybody is something that burns out quick. It just does. It's not meant to stick around. So just remember, motivation is not what we're aiming for. We're not aiming. No coach is trying to aim to make you the most motivated person in the world, because that's not going to help you.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like motivation will just get you excited about a million different topics, right? It's really that follow through, the self-discipline that you need to gain to reach your goals. So
yeah.
That is kind of a bummer power talk, but I think it overall will help people realize that it's not motivation that we want. It's the discipline to follow through with why.
Yeah. I have a random question that keeps popping up in my head, so I'm gonna ask it, and I'm gonna mess up this whole ending. So
I love it.
What is your opinion? So if you would say like when motivation dips, right? But then instead of pushing through, if someone quits, do you think it's like a lack of understanding of what it takes to get to what they want? Or do you think it's that they don't want it enough?
I think it's probably both, or a combination. I think if people know what it takes, then it's obviously the other. Like, I guess it depends on how much they know about their goals and like what they're setting, and understanding that part. I think that should be solved up front. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's probably a mix of both too, or maybe people think that they want something more than they actually do and they realize how much work it takes.
Yeah.
But I think if I base it off of, like prep, for example, it's so fucking miserable, but you want it so bad that you just keep going anyways. So I always feel like there's this little piece that if someone doesn't actually want it as much, that they probably will end up quitting. So it's like you do have to have a certain hunger for whatever it is that you're striving for.
Yeah.
And I think that hunger probably also plays off of your why. So that's kind of like they say, never forget your why, because that's basically like your food for your hunger, and how you keep on getting energy to keep going even when you don't feel like it. But yeah, so that's just one thing I think about a lot. And like a lot of times I think, oh, like maybe they just don't want it, but that sounds kind of mean. Like I
don't think it's ever that they don't want it. I think it's because I just don't maybe want it enough, but I think everybody wants everything. Like it's
They just
right.
want
Like
to see what
I
it
want
takes.
$1 million. Do I think I'm going to be a millionaire, or am I going to follow
No.
through on just that goal? No.
Yeah.
Like I it would be nice to have, but the is it? I think it all goes back to priorities almost.
Yeah.
Like what rank is your priority? And I think there's just a dividing line. Like you only
Yeah.
have so many hours in the day, you know?
Yeah, true. It's almost a chicken and the egg question a little bit.
I suppose. Yeah, you're right.
Is it motivation or is it they want it? Is it I don't know. Sorry, I just had a
No,
thought
I
there.
like the question. It's a good thing to ponder. We should put it as a poll.
Yeah. What do you guys think? I will put that question down below. So yeah, let's hear your thoughts. But yeah, is that it? Are we good?
That's what we got. That's what we
All
got.
right, cool.
All right. See y'all next time.
Peace out. Oh, no.